Good morning or good afternoon to all the people who are calling in for the webcast. A big warm welcome to what we think is definitely the next generation in the product that we've developed for our data center customers. I'm going to go through a few slides first and then jump into the product. And we'll also talk about what we mean by Six Sigma DCX, because you may have seen the animation running through, and one of the things that we've done is rebrand the product going forward. So we'll talk a little bit about what that means to you as a customer as well. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Akil Doka. I'm a engineering and product manager at Feature Facilities for North America, and I've been with the company since 2007. And I primarily run all the services as well as play a big role in the product strategy and product development for Six Sigma. Most of you on the call may have met me in person or spoken to me on phone, so hopefully the demonstration will basically show itself as to what the product is all about. For those of you who haven't been exposed to Feature Facilities, I'm going to go through a little bit of our intro, then talk about what Six Sigma DCX really means to new prospects as well as existing customers. We're going to take a quick poll to see what type of people have called in and essentially the type of users who are also calling in. Then we're going to go into the software demo, talk a little bit about the download information, and field any questions when we're done with the entire presentation. A little bit about us. For those of you who don't know who Feature Facilities is, we're an engineering analysis software company. We've been around since, in fact, 10 years now. We got our start in London, and that's really our corporate headquarters. The U.S. headquarters is in San Jose, and I work out of the corporate headquarters. We have an engineering support office in New York City, and we have various resellers around Asia as well as Europe. And we also have another corporate office in Tokyo. Feature Facilities comprises of world-class CFD developers and user interface developers who've been working with us since the very beginning. And we also have a great group of talented engineers who you have spoken to on the phone or also have worked with on consulting projects. But the whole idea is to bring together a quality team that can provide software support and services at the highest quality possible. So the belief that we have at Feature Facilities is really very basic, and it's also very profound, because we feel and we believe that there are better ways to make decisions about a data center. And that can stem from all the way from designing a server that will be placed in a data center, or a rack, or a cooling unit, or in most cases a data center itself. Starting off with using tools like Six Sigma really helps shape the right path for a better design. But eventually, when you go into operations, that model or that virtual facility that we have can then be integrated with other tools to be able to maximize the performance of the data center. Aside from saying that we make the best decisions, we also are true believers in saying that we are the only ones who can unlock the true potential of your data center, either on the design side or either on the operations side. We have a suite of products that go across the entire supply chain. So you have the server manufacturers who can use to design the internals of the box from an airflow perspective. Rack manufacturers who can bring in complicated 3D CAD models into Six Sigma rack to be able to analyze the airflow in and around the rack so they can provide the best design to their customer. Cooling manufacturers who are looking at different types of cooling technologies, such as evaporative cooling, designing new fans, etc., can use our product to provide a better design. Data center professionals who are not only designing data centers, but also looking to extend out of the data center in terms of being able to look at external flow modeling, where they're looking to place the generators in the optimal location, can use Six Sigma as well. And on the right-hand side, eventually the entire supply chain is feeding into the one final entity, and that's the operations or the owner-operator. All the models that are built can then be safely used within the entire operations process, integrate with DCIM to be able to make the best decision going forward from an IT and also from a facility standpoint. So what is Six Sigma DCX? It really started about 2 years ago when we released our version 7. And at that point, we also released a survey. And we asked a lot of people about what they thought about the software, what they think they didn't like, what they liked about it. And we got a really good response about, the software. And that was really great response from all our customers because it was very honest. And it really told us where we lacked in terms of providing the best software for our customers. One of the few high-level points are 50% were not thermal specialists. When we started Six Sigma Room, a lot of our, essentially our early adopters were mechanical engineering firms who had degree mechanical engineers on staff. But as we moved into a wider audience, we realized that not everybody was a mechanical engineer and not everybody understood the complex CFD technology. So we had to ensure that if the software had to be used by different people, it had to be accessible for different people as well. 40% of the people who were using the tool said that they were fairly comfortable with the software, but they felt that they weren't using the full potential. And that's something that we felt really strongly about because, as you may be aware, we keep adding new features to the product. We average about 2 releases a year, and every release has a lot of new features going in. And so we felt that if that was the response by the user, then something about the software wasn't really lending itself for the user to maximize it. And the third profound point was that most of the people who were using the software had never been trained formally, and something that any company can't keep track of. And that's because you have an expert user who uses the software, and then he or she is then training new engineers who are hired on. Most companies prefer not to send engineers to training for several reasons. And once you have a subject matter expert, then most of the users rely on him or her. So we felt that we had to change the software so that we could essentially address all these 3 different high-level points. I pulled up a quote from no other than Steve Jobs. And one of the things that we were always asking ourselves about is we need to make the software easy to use. And easy to use has different meaning to a variety of people. What it really comes down to is how Steve Jobs put it. And I really like this quote, so I've put it up here for everybody to see. It's basically focus and simplicity. Simple can be harder than complex, and you have to work hard to get your thinking clean to make it simple. So we set out with the goal of making sure that the user interface was accessible, was clean, and was simple. But it took us 2 years to do that. And how do we go about doing that? First of all, we incorporate all the feedback from our users. So I think this is very important to point out that as a company, we listen to our users a lot, and we make sure that we're putting all the features as we go along. We wanted to make it simple and quick to do common things, so not have any new users struggle with the basic operation of the software. We wanted to make the software more intuitive and bring forth all the functionality. If you're a long-time user of Six Sigma Room, you may have already figured out the logical relationship between a parent and a child. But for new users, it was very difficult for them to understand what that relationship meant. We had to make sure that we brought that and simplified that functionality for new users. Obviously, it goes without saying, we have to make everything accessible. One of the things that a lot of the people told us was that the features are great, but they're hidden, so I find it hard to build a model. If the features were available to me in front of in my eyes, I would be able to build a better model or navigate through the software fairly quickly and easily. So we have to make that accessible. We also wanted to make sure that the users learn by doing. You can only do so many training classes, you can only do so many support sessions, but at the end of the day, the user is really the one who is able to navigate through the software and be able to make mistakes and learn from those mistakes in the software. So we wanted to make sure that if they were navigating, they had all the data available to them and all the help and the menu optics available to them in a clean and simple fashion. And obviously, you want to do all the 4 by maintaining the actual core strengths of the product. Six Sigma always has been the highest quality product that we put forth, and we will continue to do so. And we had to make sure that the user interface or the functionality that we were changing in no way compromise the core aesthetics of the software. So the DCX was a profound change for us. The rebranding is basically to commemorate the 10 years of what we've been doing for the data center industry. We feel we've just scratched the surface. The product really reflects our vision, our passion for creating great products for the data center industry. And so going forward, we've rebranded Six Sigma DC suite of products into Six Sigma DCX. What this means is really the whole idea that as a software provider, we're no longer just providing point solutions. We're providing software solutions for the different markets that are out there, be it a co-location provider, be it an enterprise, be it a IT hardware vendor, be it an MEP consultant. We have different products that fit in those different buckets, and DCX really exemplifies what we've done for those things. And we also believe now that we have the best-in-class CMD to use, which is also the easiest to use. So with that, I'm just going to switch over to the polling. Take about 2 seconds here before I launch the poll, and that way I'll ask the questions. And you can answer this before the time limit expires, and while that's happening, I will go into the actual software demo. Let me share my screen here. So one thing you'll notice is the fact that the entire user interface is new. For those who have been used to Six Sigma, there's no need to fear. We haven't really gutted the entire interface and the functionality that you've been used to. Those features still exist. But what we've done is taken the path that is familiar to a lot of the people in the market today. The first one, though, you'll see is we've adopted a Microsoft ribbon type technology. This allows us to ensure that all the different features and functionality are accessible and visible to the users. For example, if I go to the import button, you'll start to see a lot of the logical functions that are applicable for a user. You can import a CAD drawing, you can import temperatures, you can import equipment data, you can import old Six Sigma room models, etc. If you go to the build section, then logically assigned here are the ability for you to sketch your walls, lay out your cabinets, fill your cabinets to full capacity. If you go to the solve button here, you can generate a grid, you can set your target grid, you can solve, you can also do cooling failure. Some of these icons that you see here have been generated especially for this new software because all these were functionality that was completely hidden in the older versions. When you go to the results button, you can start to compare your models, you can generate reports, and look at all the different plots there. And so what you'll notice is that as I'm clicking to the ribbons, there's a logical build to the entire section here. You'll start off by importing some CAD file, you'll start by building the walls around it. Once you've built your entire data center, you'll start to solve it and start looking at the results, do some animations, and export the results and the reports that you like. So for anybody who's starting up new, this is a great way for you to channel essentially your model build or your project build as you go along. The other thing that we have added to the software is something called the object panel. The object panel is really a huge upgrade over the object toolbar that we used to have. So you'll notice there's no longer a right-click option, at least in the object itself. All the object panels are now available to you on the left-hand side. So what you see here is that I've got commonly used objects, I've got architecture, I've got cabinets, I've got IT hardware, I've got cooling. So we feel the Visio style template that a lot of people are familiar with will be great because this allows the user truly to experience the drag and drop functionality that we've always talked about, but we've achieved this in this version here. So I'm going to start off with just basic build here. And one of the things I'm going to do is go ahead and import a CAD drawing. And right away I can see that there's a CAD drawing. If I'm confused about what a CAD drawing or an STL CAD model is, I can just hover the mouse over it and it's going to tell me exactly what those are. So you start to see quick tidbits here where if you want to click on the F1 help, you can actually read through the whole feature But if you just want to get a quick glimpse of what it's all about, you just mouse over the icon there. So I'm going to just click on the CAD drawing. I have a simple CAD drawing that I'm going to bring in. And there you go. So that's the CAD drawing that I have. There's no cabinets in there, so it's really up to me to add everything that I want to add. And so what I'm going to do right now is go ahead and build the walls around it. So I'm going to say sketch walls. I'm going to delete these walls that I have and just build a new set of walls around it. And let's put this down here. Let's finish this off. And there you go. That's the wall that I have. And as you saw, the sketch walls options is very simple, clear to follow now. Let's actually tackle the object panel. So what we've done with the object panel is to separate this out into 3 different sections. You have your standard objects, you have your user favorites, which I'll talk about later, and then you obviously have your Six Sigma DC library that is broken up into design libraries, vendor libraries, or even your own libraries that you want. I'm just going to let the poll expire. It's about 15 seconds ago, then we'll look at the results, and then we'll continue with our demo here. With the standard objects, I just want to show the drag and drop functionality. The moment I select the cabinet and drop it on the raised floor is highlighted. It'll actually show where the cabinets are located. I'm just going to pause here, and I'm going to apply the poll so we can look at it. And so, looking at the results here, 20 of you have answered. Existing users to upgrade. I've seen previous version are about a good 37%. I'm using a different tool and considering switching to Six Sigma, so welcome. You're about 15%. And there's a competitor who's looking for inspiration, so that's great. I'm glad you're able to join us today. But a good mix of the different people that who have seen Six Sigma in the past and who are actually also using Six Sigma. So I think there's a good quorum here. I'm just going to get back to just building the cabinet or the room. So I'm just going to drag the cabinet in there. You'll notice that it gives me a window to say, okay, this is the cabinet you're planning to use. I can then say add multiple and just start dropping cabinets in there. So this is one way of doing things in Six Sigma as you may have seen in the past. I'm just going to do the same thing with the grills. And again, the object panel is great because I don't have to think about where to go and to drop in the floor grills, etc. I'm also going to drop in a floor grill or a couple floor grills behind the cabinets, and there's a reason for why I'm doing this. The object panel serves multiple purposes. One is that not only allows you to drag and drop, but as you notice, when I mouse over the appropriate cabinet, it actually gets highlighted. So the object that you wanted to select and edit, now it's a lot easier to do so in 9. I'll do the same thing for the floor grill. If you remember, I dropped in 3 grills right behind those 3 cabinets there. If I mouse over now, even though the grills are blocked directly by the cabinets, I can still select them through the cabinet. This is a great functionality that we have because it will allow you to find and select objects that you previously couldn't because they're visually hidden completely from your point of view. So if I were to go and do it the old-fashioned way, I couldn't actually select those grills anymore because they're completely hidden from the view. I had to rotate the model and to be able to select them. We feel this is going to be a great time saver for you as you keep building your models. I'm going to drop in the IT equipment in a similar fashion, so you notice that the logical parent gets highlighted. You no longer have to select the cabinet, go to the mounting rail and drop it in. You simply select the cabinet and drop the IT equipment in. Again, you get a quick preview of where the IT equipment will drop in. You can simply drag it up and down where you want it. As I said before, the object panel can be used multiple different ways. You also notice that there's a search bar at the very top of the object panel, and I can just say I'm looking for an HP ProLine DL360, and let's find out a G7 here, and I'm just going to drag and drop that guy in there. So using the search feature, you can search for anything you want. You can say I want a cabinet, and it'll find the generic cabinets you want, but if you're looking for something specific, let's say Rital, in this case, I can just say I want a Rital cabinet that I want to drag and drop in there. So the search is great because it's always indexing real time, and so there's no delay between what you want and what you really want to be able to use in the model. There's also user favorites, and I'll come to that as I continue building my model. What I'm going to do right now is also show a couple additional features of the object panel. You can also select Before, if you wanted to select the cabinets, you could simply rubber band it, and that's great. That feature still exists. But if I just wanted to select all the cabinets here, I can just right-click on the object panel and just delete them. I can do the same thing with the floor grills. I can select them all and delete them. So the object panel is great for drag and dropping, for selecting objects, for changing the properties, and also being able to add or delete new objects if you want. I'm going to go back to the original CAD file. And for those of you who are already nervous about the model tree, fear not, because it still exists, and you can still do things the same way that you did before. The right-click functionality exists, and you can just keep adding the children as you did before. I'm just going to go ahead and now drop in a row. A row, again, is a child of the raised floor, so I'm just going to drop it on tile C3 here. I'm going to say there are 4 rows. The total length of the row is 7 cabinets. And what I can also select is the type of cabinet I want to select. So it's just defaulting to something that I have in the library, but I can also switch it out with something that I can use later on. So I can use an APC cabinet if I want. And in this case, it's saying that I'm going to use a slotted grill, but I'm going to change that to a perforated grill. And increase the power to 6.5 kilowatts. It's going to use a 4U server to fill to capacity, and we'll take a look at how it looks when we're done building the model. Just going to click OK here, and there you go. That's your layout. And as you notice that because the row is selected, it's actually highlighting all the individual rows that are there in the model, which allows me to manipulate or change the properties of the objects within that row. What I want to be able to do is just simply select a cabinet here and show you in a different view. So again, the IT equipment that I have, I can individually select using the object panel. There are a couple of things that I want to bring to your attention. The first thing is the layout of the property sheet. That's changed a little bit. Before, we had one long property sheet that had all the attributes there. We felt that if the users had to move quickly through the model build, they needed all the essentials to be placed in front of them so they could edit the most used properties. So for example, if I have a 40 slot cabinet, it will just change the height of the cabinet, and I can just move ahead with my model build. If I want to change the properties of the cabinet, change to 7.5 kilowatts, I can do that very easily. We've also made sure that some of the critical results are displayed in the Essentials window. For those of you who are advanced users of the software, you always have your usual property sheet where you can go in and change the more detailed information if you like, but we've seen that majority of the users just prefer to work within this framework. And finally, we've also removed the results and put it in a different tab. So you can just tab over and get a great feel for what your data points look like for every unit. I'm just going to undo some of the changes I've just made here. The other thing you'll notice is I have a checkbox here that says fill to capacity, so I can just make that cabinet empty, and I can say C7000. Just want a HV C7000 coming in. It's fully loaded. I'm just going to drag and drop that guy in there. And that's it. You're done. So you can either use generic loads if you're doing a conceptual design, or you can simply select an existing library item, like in this case the C7000, and drop that guy in there. I'm just going to grab another one and drop it in there. So in 2 different locations, and I can visually move them up or down if I want. Let's go into the cooling side of things. Again, drag and drop. I'm going to drag a air cooling unit. The way the air cooling unit works is that I've already selected a template that is a 40 kilowatt unit. I can change that out and say, look, I'm looking for a 60 or 30 kilowatt. It doesn't really matter. The fact that you can actually link your object to a certain library is great because you can move quickly through your model build. And I'm just going to leave the default as is. I'm going to say add multiple, and I'm just going to create 4 of them. These 2 I can simply select and rotate, as you see here. And what I'll do here is, just to test my resilience, I'm going to turn off one of the air cooling units. And this is a great opportunity for me to show you the object-sensitive or context-sensitive ribbon. If you notice that when I select the ACU, I have different parts that can be attached to it. I can attach an auxiliary controller, I can attach a cooling duct, I can attach a scoop. So let's drop the scoop in there. As you can see, the scoop is already a child of the unit. But more importantly, I can also go and turn off the unit. So every object that you have in Six Sigma now has a contact sensor ribbon. So for cabinets, I can add a blower, I can add a cable route. So all these objects are now logically arranged, and every time you select the constituent object, you get a object sensor ribbon. So look for that as you're building your model, because this is a great way to avoid doing a right click and just simply going to the contact sensor ribbon to add the objects that you like. What I've just done is I've turned off a crack unit, and I'm going to test the resilience in my model. The other thing I'm going to do is search for a cooling pipe. So I'm just going to search here. There's a cooling pipe object that I can simply drag and drop in the room. It will then ask me for, do you want how many parallel paths? I'll say I want 2 at this pitch, and I can simply sketch. So again, making it really easy for users to search and drop in the objects as you move along. Again, as I mentioned, the contact sensor ribbon, I can select the cooling pipe segment. I can say that it's a branch, and I can say that it starts here and runs to the center of the room, like so. So anything that you wanted to change, you can search the object panel and use the contact sensor ribbon. As you may have noticed, I've never used the right-click button so far, and that's something that we told ourselves that if we were going to make a really easy-to-use software, we had to make sure the right-click options were removed and just placed in front of the user as a left-click option. So I've got a pretty decent data center built up. A lot of people on the call probably are fans of cold-out containment or hot-out containment, so I thought I'll make a model that shows off the feature again. So we have something called the aisle enclosures that you can simply drag and drop. But you notice that when it searches for the aisle enclosure, I can also pick something that is a user-defined. So what I've already done is, ahead of time, I've prepared a containment that is for cold out here. I'm just going to drag and drop that in there, drag and drop this guy. And it knows that that's a cold out, so it'll highlight the cold out that you need. And then this is a full containment that I want in the middle of the row. And I'll build a model with hot out containment for just to show, and we can take a look at the differences as you see there. But again, the great way of doing things is that now you simply use the object panel. Again, just going back and reverting the model tree, you have your stage structure, and you notice that as I'm building my model, Six Sigma is arranging them really well under cooling, aisles, rows, and cooling pipes. The same structure that defined the usability for a room for such a long time has been retained for existing users. That's it. I'm good to go. I'm just going to click on the Solve button, and I'll say, go ahead and solve it for me. So I'll just say CACS cold-out containment, and I'll call it demo room. And let it start. So while that's solving, I want to show the users a couple more models that we can actually build. What we've done is also created, let me share my window here real quick. One of the key requests that came in from a lot of the customers was to include the ability to model air-air heat exchangers in Six Sigma. And I'll share this window now. This is a great feature that can be used both in Six Sigma Room and also in Six Sigma Room Lite. So we actually haven't ignored the Room Lite customers of ours. What this means is you can select the crack unit or the AC that you have, and the additional feature that you get now is the ability to change the setup from a chill water direct cooled to indirect air to air. So this is where a lot of the new technology is getting popular, where air handling units are now becoming a lot more efficient. People are aware that they don't want to spend a lot of money on the cooling side to bring their PUE down. And one of the really neat technologies is the ability for crack units to exchange air and transfer the heat out of the room via the external environment. So here you see I have a crack unit that has 2 intakes. And if I go to the model tree here, you'll see the setup. There's a supply that is pumping cold air into the room. There's a return that is extracting hot air back. But the way the heat is actually transferred out of the crack unit is via these 2 intakes. These 2 intakes are on the side of the crack unit where the ambient air comes in, and there's the exhaust through which the hot air leaves the unit. You can also further cool that air by saying that it's water cooled. So if the air temperature outside is really hot and you wanted to cool the air temperature down and you weren't meeting that set point, you can actually use a trimming coil to be able to say I have a water spray or even a cooling pad or even a DX coil downstream to be able to cool the additional air. But it's a great feature that is available both in Six Sigma Room and also in Six Sigma Room Lite. So I think you guys will definitely be able to make full use of the new technology that a lot of the air handling unit manufacturers are putting forth. So that's a great feature. So in Six Sigma Room, you can obviously change this into a detailed model, and then you can add filters, heat exchangers, cooling pads, etc. But we feel that by providing a simplified version, a black box version, a lot of people can actually use it effectively just by entering the properties that they require to from the data sheet. So it looks like my room is almost done running. It's 2 minutes 36 seconds. I'm just going to stop it here, and we'll take a look at the results real quick. So again, as I mentioned before, under standard objects, if you go down to the results, you can look at the result plane, just drag and drop that in there. So that'll create your proper result plane. Again, you can see with cold out containment, you would expect the air temperature inside the aisle to be consistent or close enough to the supply temperature from the grills, because there's very little infiltration, provided the cabinets are actually pretty well sealed off, or there's enough airflow to match the IT equipment. Again, modeling is a great way to understand the inadequacies of the data center design. So again, the result plane is great because I can move this, I can change the properties of it, I can change the velocity, I can change the pressure, really anything that you're looking for, move it up or down, or even animate it. I'm just going to hide it because the same function or the same feature can be accessed through the top button. So I can just say result plane again, and under results, I'll have all the plots that I want. So you can do it multiple ways here. A lot of people are also interested in looking at the temperatures inside the cabinet. So what we've done is we have the ASHRAE compliance. So again, because we're so data center focused, we are providing the best tools to be able to analyze the temperature of every individual IT equipment. So this is ASHRAE temperature standards defined at the IT equipment level. So you can see that all the IT equipment are now colored in green. You can do the same plot for the cabinet. So that's a cabinet level plot. Or if you want to do the IT equipment, you can simply select the IT equipment plot. So that's a great way to understand what's happening inside your rack and if there are any issues inside the rack. Looks like I've over-provisioned my data center or I'm underutilizing it. That's why my servers are actually in green. Let's go back to the original view here. What I also want to do is show you the functionality of the new streamline plot. So here I have a server. Let's plot the equipment plot here and do the ASHRAE compliance. And I can grab a streamline plot and just simply place it on the inflow. Before, you have to select the inflow and drop the plot in there. Now you don't have to do that anymore. It simply understands where I can drop it in. I can drop it on the vent, so the parent is highlighted, or I can drop it on the inflow of the unit. I'll do this on the outflow side as well. So the outflow is highlighted, and there you go. So that's the exhaust air coming out. Going back to the room, let's go back and take a look at the airflow here, and you see that the streamline plots show everything that I need to look at. We can also take a look at using the context sensor ribbon or just the object base. So if I select the AC unit and select the streamline plot, it actually creates the streamline plot at both the returns and also the supply. So just one-click operation to be able to get all the answers that you want with respect to what's happening within the room. You also have other result options such as a result cloud. So I can just plot that. This is great when you're running a transient model because it shows how the heat is actually spreading around the room. There are lots of other plots that are great. You can look at AC cooling plots, result volumes to be able to understand what's happening with your entire room. But the feature that I like the most is our ability to create quick reports when we need to. So I'm going to just say I need a full report here. I can create a PowerPoint or I can create HTML, and I'll just start to crank away at the result that I want. And I'll run through its macro and give you all the different plots that you prefer. Again, these reports are user configurable. I've just selected the standard default report that I have. while that report's cranking away, one of the main support questions that we always used to get was the authentication of the Six Sigma CMD server. And all those existing users of Six Sigma, I'm sure you've called us once, at least in your lifetime, to ask us, why is this not working? Well, good news is we've been able to fix that. You no longer need to authenticate the CMD server to run the multiple cores. You simply install the service, and there you go. That's the new message that you get. There are 4 processors on my laptop, and that's what it's telling me that I can use. There's no need to authenticate yourself as a user, and that we feel is great because it generated so much support for us and a lot of frustration on the user side that now we've addressed that issue for you guys. I felt that I had to talk about this because I've logged every support call in the last 7 years, and a lot of them are related to authentication of the CMD server. So the report is done. This is what the report looks like. You can put your logo in there. We can go into the different views. You can take a look at the wireframe. You can take a look at the shell on the underfloor. What does the velocity pattern look like? What do the AC streamlines look like? So a lot of the good data that you're looking for is generated literally automatically for you. I'm going to share one more model here, which I think will be very exciting for a lot of the users here, and that is the external model. In the last 2 years, we've been, as a company, been working with a lot of data center consultants and even owner-operators who are looking to not only model the inside of the data center, but also looking to model outside the data center. And we felt that we had to extend our functionality to go outside the data center because a typical scaled model, if you build an actual prototype, can be anywhere between 4 to 6 months before you get your results back. So that is a lot of money spent on a proper prototype of what you're building, what your campus might look like. We felt that we could actually provide our users with the best functionality with respect to the external flow modeling. So what you see here is basically a couple of things. One is the ability for you to model cooling towers, and if you don't know how to do it, we can definitely walk you through it. That's our engineers are really good at modeling these now. And the other thing that we've added to the functionality is the ability for you to define, and I'll just select the wall here. Go out to the CAD and just type in, I don't know where external wall is, so I'm just going to type that in there and just going to select this guy here. So you notice that there's a cross flow here, and if you look at the construction and look at the profile, you can see that we've actually added a wind profile there. So if I go down to the actual velocity profile, you can take a look at the curve that we've defined. So if you know this data, if you know the variation of velocity as a function of height, you can import that data and you can apply a non-uniform wind profile directly onto any side. So here I've got wind blowing in 2 different directions, and that can have had a huge impact on where the generators are placed, the separation of the generators from the walls, and finally the infiltration of the exhaust gases from the generators of cooling towers into other objects. So this is a great functionality that we have because it really helps us connect up all the way from the server. Essentially, the term chip to chiller is what we're trying to push, and so you can model all the way down to the component of the server, but now we can also push and analyze even outside the data center. There's a couple more things I wanted to talk about real quick with respect to the air conditioning units or air cooling units. Let me just load up the model that I had solved before, and we can talk about the additional features we have. So air cooling units are not simple, as most of you guys know, but setting up in Six Sigma was a bit tedious in the older version. So what we've done is we said, look, you can select all 4, and with the essentials that you have, you can just set everything to a different set point. So here I can change this value to Fahrenheit, and I'll say that it's actually 65 Fahrenheit and set to supply temperature. Again, this was an object in the model machine, but now it's an attribute of the unit. So very simple and very easy for you to get to the properties that you want. But let's just say that I want the first one, this first cooling unit, to be the guy that controls all the other units. So I'm going to call this a setup of master and slave. So this unit is going to be the master, and these 3 units, even though this one's turned off, I want these guys to be the slaves of the unit. What will happen now is the controller on this unit is going to control the capacities coming out of these 3 units. This is a very new technology, at least in Six Sigma, but I'm sure it's been around in the real data center world for a while. But the whole idea is that you can now do the master-slave combination for the different cooling units that you have. You can also get into other areas where you can set the floor rate at the crack unit. Again, you'll see that the essentials really define that. You can also say, look, I'm not really running a VFD, but I'm running my fans at 75% of their overall speed. And so Six Sigma will automatically regulate the flow rate down to match 75%. I want to show a couple more features before I start fielding some questions. I'm sure you guys are itching to ask me a lot. There's a lot of thing about building clean models, and we looked at improving that functionality. So here I've on purpose, I've created a cabinet layout that is not really in line. And before, you had to select the cabinets that you wanted, and you had to move them down and make sure that they're snapping to the front of the other cabinets. Imagine doing this for 50 cabinets, 100 cabinets. It just gets really tedious. You don't have to do that anymore, because now you simply select the cabinets that you want. Obviously, the build ribbon, you can auto-align the rows. So now it's align the rows as I want them. I can even remove this guy, drop a in-row cooler. Let's pick an APC in-row cooler here, and drop that in there. And I'm just going to then select and align them. You notice that all the cabinets now just move back and snap to that unit. And this is a great feature because I think that will save you a lot of time and clean up all the mistakes that a lot of people make when they're building models, especially with auto aligning. Personally speaking, I like this feature a lot because as you build more and more complicated models, you want to be able to have these small things that really help you build a really clean model, an error-free model as you want. So those are the overall features of Six Sigma. Obviously, as a user, you can explore a lot more and do a lot more. We feel this has been 2 years in the making. A lot of late nights, a lot of caffeine-induced meetings, and this finally the result is something that we're really proud of that we can give to the data center community. One thing to do note is that there's a lot more. That's just a stepping stone for us because there's a lot more features that will be enhancements and performance enhancements that will come in the next version or next releases that we plan to have. So this is just the beginning. So there's not the end of what we think Six Sigma will look like. This is just the beginning of what we can actually harness of the true power what we have with Six Sigma. So with that, I'm just going to go back to my presentation. There's a couple of things that I wanted to show. One thing is that we'll be running another survey in 2015. So as a user or as a prospect, whoever you are, feel free to either email me or partake in the survey. We'd love to hear from you. And this is a great way for a user or users to help us understand what your needs are from a software perspective. We think we have it covered, but unless we hear from you guys, we may not be able to. We may not think that we have the feature fully dialed in. And we take a look at the demo, and I like to see if there are questions that people have, so I can start answering them.
All right, going over to the chat feature, a couple of questions have come in. Can you work in a model while solving another model?
Yes, you can. It's actually dependent on the type of license you have. We have a node lock version of the software and a floating version of the software. The ability for you to work on a model one model, and the ability for the other model to be solving can only be done with a floating license. And the way that works is on the workstation that you check out the floating license, you can open up unlimited instances of Six Sigma Room. So for example, here, as you can see, let me see if I have in my license manager, if I have more than one keys. Well, no, I don't. So I only have, as you can see, I only have one license on Six Sigma Room, and it's already checked out. So it's one floating license. But then somebody said, hey, Keel, you got to look at this result, and there you go. I have basically two instances of Six Sigma Room open. I can solve this guy, and I can go back to my original model and start building this model. So the feature is available in a floating license option only, not for a no-locked option.
Another question that came in, is external modeling going to be part of the light version?
The external modeling is not part of the light version just yet. We have to, as a company, we have to make sure that we're providing tools that address the needs for different people from different companies and different budgets. By bringing in external modeling to Room Light, we could compromise Six Sigma Room in general. So that's one of the reasons why we are keeping those two products separate. You can model the effect of external flow on Six Sigma Room Light by doing a couple workarounds. If you have a question, we can definitely help answer that on a different support call if you like. But the external modeling, because it's sophisticated, it's advanced, we felt that it was right that it would be included only for Six Sigma Room right now.
Another question that came in, is there DCIM integration?
Yes, there is. So Six Sigma FM, which is our operational tool, part of the DCX suite of products, is basically the operational version of our software. That resides next to a DCIM solution that is collecting and collating information, because that's essentially what a DCIM tool is. We feel the decision-making really happens in Six Sigma FM. So what you have is what we call a Six Sigma Gateway server, which is a service that runs on the side. And here, I can show you what kind of integration we currently have. We have integration with RF Code. If you guys are not familiar with RF Code, they are essentially one of the bigger players in monitoring. They can do asset management through RFID tags. Enlight, they're huge in asset management, IT asset management. Intel DCM. FNT is a new player. They're out of Germany, and their strength lies in networking, but they also have a DCM tool. We can also pull data via SNMP, IPMI, and we are partnered with a company called No Limits, and their product is called RAMP. This list is not limited. We have a few more vendors that we're currently working with to integrate, and we'll be releasing updates as we go along. The key thing to understand is that the planning is done in DCIM in the sense that the IT teams will pick and select the devices that they want to install in the DCIM tool. Six Sigma Gateway will sync automatically with their main database, and when the user opens up Six Sigma FM, the units will automatically be placed in the cabinets. And so now you have the chance from an engineering standpoint to make an impact and say, look, these devices that you plan to put in those cabinets, they probably will not work because either they break the cooling or they break the power limits that you're setting. So all the decisions you can make in Six Sigma FM push that data back into a DCIM tool. So we have open APIs that we can work directly with a DCIM vendor.
Okay, another one that came in, have you increased the equipment library from version 8?
We're always doing that. So I believe when I spoke to our development team, we have 3,500 individual items, individual items, including crack units, cabinets, servers. If you're a customer of Six Sigma, you're probably aware that you can request the library items at any given point in time, and we usually we try our best to create the library items for you. The items that are always created, there's never a moment where we're not creating library items. So this is something that's an ongoing process, but there's a definite increase of new objects in Six Sigma due to the release. So the libraries are always being updated as a result of users requesting it or our own engineering team finding them during our consulting work.
Another question that came in, when applying containment, does it auto-seal for uneven cabinet heights?
It doesn't do that just yet. It's not that slick. We're working on it. Probably will be. It's a feature that we've identified. It does seal off the end of the rows. So if you add an additional cabinet to the row, it'll seal off. But if you change the height of the cabinet, it doesn't. So as easier, you have to go fill that space up as you go along.
One more question that came in. With the new release, has the solve time been improved?
There's always been, with Six Sigma, we're never afraid to add more details to it. So the integrity of models should be something that should be of the utmost importance. The solve time will be improved. This is an R&D project that we're working on, and there will be a improvement on the grid generation as well as the solve time. We are not releasing it for this product because it requires a lot of testing, but if you are an existing user of Six Sigma and would like to play around with it, I'd be more than happy to give you the research version of what we have for feedback. But the early signs that we've seen for the solver is really good because it takes models that are 150 million, 100 million, and brings it down to almost 20 to 30 million. And the speedups are really good right now. But they're still in research, so that's why we haven't released it for this version. But the next version of Room will definitely have the latest solver technology in there. So if you're a user of the software right now, we can definitely, and if you're interested, we can definitely set you up with a trial version of a beta release of this product.
All right, another question that came in: how can we get the ability to download this new version of the software?
Yeah, so what will happen is there will be a link that will be sent out to pretty much everybody in the database. So if you're attending this webinar, then you are in our database. So you'll see a link later on today, or if I'm not mistaken, they probably have already sent it out. But there will be a link for you to download and install the software with all the installation instructions. One thing to note is that if you are a current customer, there's no change in licensing. The licenses simply get upgraded. You do have to be aware that there's no backward compatibility between 9 and 8. So if you're bringing in a model from 8, make sure that you use a file save as to save the file in 9 if you're nervous about upgrading all the models, but you'll be prompted when you import the old version into Six Sigma Release 9.
All right. Unfortunately, that brings us to the end of our scheduled time period. If we weren't able to get to your questions, we will make sure to get them an answer to you. Real quickly, before we leave, Akil, can you show them the new website address as well, sixsigmadcx.com?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for reminding me, Keith. So we have a new website called Six Sigma DCX. I'm just going to do a Google search because that's exactly how most of you will get there. This is a new product launch page that we have. You can go up to the overview if you're a prospect. Simply click on, if you love my demo today, then obviously you'll be clicking on this button here to say arrange a demo or take a trial. So please do that. I'm sure you guys are itching to click these buttons and call us immediately after my demo. You can go in there and learn more about the features that we have, specific to the data center, specific to the modeling time, and you can also log in to the user support site. If you're an existing user, you can log in and access videos and help and other things that you have. Keith, again, thanks for reminding me. I did want to show one last thing before we call it a day. The entire help section has been completely revamped, as you can see. So the old style help is gone. This is a slick new help function that we have to access it, you just hit F1 on the keyboard, and there you go. So it's completely web-based, and you can fire it up anytime you want. A lot of the content that was hidden or missing has been added, and it's also a lot more easier to access and understand what the data means. So very good documentation. Our documentation team has done really well on making sure that the help has been also revamped for this release.
All right. Thank you very much, Keel, for showing us this demo, and thank you, everybody, for attending. Hope you have a wonderful day.